Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Audacity of Him, the only channel on YouTube dedicated exclusively to the staggering, breathtaking, completely unearned confidence of the modern human male. Today's story isn't about plumbing. It's not about barbecue. No, today we are taking to the skies, or rather, we are plummeting violently from them. Let me set the scene. It was a Tuesday. My boyfriend Kevin, a man whose greatest mechanical achievement to date is successfully changing the HDMI input on the TV without having to call his younger brother, was watching a documentary about the miracle on the Hudson. We were sitting on the couch. The dramatic music was swelling. Captain Sully was doing his thing, cool as a cucumber, landing an Airbus A320 on a literal river. And then Kevin paused the TV. He wiped a dusting of neon orange cheese dust from his sweatpants, turned to me with eyes full of absolute, unwavering sincerity, and uttered the sentence that would change my financial life forever. Honestly, I could probably do that. I blinked. I waited for the punchline. I waited for the smirk. But no, he was dead serious. Do what, babe? I asked, my voice trembling with the fragile hope that he meant he could, I don't know, grow a white mustache? Land a commercial airliner in an emergency, he said, casually tossing a Cheeto into his mouth. I mean, think about it. It's mostly automated these days anyway. It's just pulling levers and following the screens. I'm great at Mario Kart. I have incredible spatial awareness. Plus, I handle high-stress situations really well. Kevin, I said very slowly, you had a panic attack last week because the self-checkout machine at Target told you to place your item in the bagging area and you didn't have an item. That was a software glitch, babe. That machine was gaslighting me, he argued, sitting up straighter. I'm telling you, if the pilots both passed out from bad fish, like in that movie Airplane, I could easily step into the cockpit, get on the radio, and glide that baby into LAX. It's just physics and vibes. Physics and vibes. Now, a normal girlfriend would have rolled her eyes, laughed it off, and gone back to scrolling TikTok. But I am not a normal girlfriend. I am a woman fueled by spite, a decent credit score, and an insatiable need to prove a point. The audacity of him to claim he could land a multi-million-dollar flying metal tube based purely on his experience with playing Call of Duty was a challenge I could not ignore. I didn't want an apology. I wanted complete and utter psychological destruction. So, while Kevin went to sleep, dreaming of a ticker tape parade in his honor, I opened my laptop and fell down the deepest, most expensive rabbit hole on the internet, the hardcore flight simulator community. I didn't just buy a video game. Oh no, I bought the system. I bought the Thrustmaster Boeing Edition yoke. I bought the rudders. I bought the throttle quadrant with the thrust reversers. I bought an ultra-wide curved monitor that is so big it has its own gravitational pull. When the delivery guy arrived 3 days later, he looked at the massive pallets of boxes, looked at me, and asked, "Are you building a spaceship?" "No, Dave," I said, signing the receipt. "I'm destroying a man's ego." It took me 7 hours to set it up. Our living room no longer looked like a place where human beings relaxed. It looked like the training facility for a mid-budget regional airline. I downloaded Microsoft Flight Simulator. I bought the hyper-realistic Airbus A320 add-on package. The one where if you press the wrong button, the plane actually depressurizes and the digital passengers probably sue you. I wanted zero margin for error. Then I waited. Kevin walked in from work. He dropped his keys in the bowl. He walked into the living room. He stopped dead in his tracks. "Babe," he whispered, his eyes wide. What is this? I was sitting in the corner sipping a glass of Pinot Noir. You said you could land a plane, Kevin, I said, gesturing grandly to the monstrosity taking up the space where our coffee table used to be. Put your money where your mouth is, Captain. At first, he tried to play it cool. He laughed. Babe, you bought all this just to prove a point? You're crazy. Get in the seat, Kevin, I said, my voice dropping an octave. The passengers of Flight 815 are waiting. Now, here is where the male ego is a truly fascinating biological marvel. A rational person would look at the array of 300 different switches, dials, and digital displays and say, okay, you got me. I know nothing. Not Kevin. Kevin's eyes lit up. He saw the yoke. He saw the throttle. He cracked his knuckles. All right, he smirked. Let's do this. Boot it up. I reached into a bag next to me and pulled out the pièce de résistance, a cheap plastic costume store pilot's hat. I placed it gently on his head. Welcome aboard, Captain Kev, I said. I had set up a specific scenario. This wasn't a leisurely Sunday flight over the Grand Canyon. I loaded up a stormy, low-visibility approach into Chicago O'Hare at night. The digital rain was lashing against the virtual windshield. The simulated wind was howling. The scenario begins mid-air. The autopilot is off. Both imaginary pilots have just violently succumbed to imaginary food poisoning. Kevin is the only thing standing between 200 digital souls and a fiery demise in an Illinois cornfield. Okay, Kevin said, his voice dropping into a deep, gravelly tone that I had literally never heard before. This is your new captain speaking. We are experiencing some slight turbulence, but I've got the stick. Kevin, you're talking to the living room wall, I reminded him. Immersive role play, babe. Let me work, he snapped back, his eyes glued to the screen. He grabbed the yoke with both hands. Instantly, the plane lurched violently to the left. Whoa, okay, she's a little sensitive, Kevin yelled, wrestling with the wheel. He yanked it to the right. The virtual plane snapped back, rolling so hard the virtual coffee in the virtual cockpit spilled. Why is it yelling at me? Kevin shouted over the alarms. The cool, gravelly pilot voice was gone. He sounded like a teenager who just dropped his mom's iPhone in a toilet. It's telling you that you are heading directly toward the ground, Captain, I said calmly, taking a sip of my wine. I know that! I'm looking at the ground! It's coming very fast, he panicked. He pulled back on the yoke as hard as he could. The nose of the plane pitched up at a terrifying 45-degree angle. The airspeed plummeted. What does stall mean? Does that mean the engine stopped? He screamed, his hands sweating so much they were slipping off the plastic wheel. It means you don't have enough forward momentum to maintain lift, Kevin. It means you are falling out of the sky like a 60-ton brick. I thought you said this was automated. Where's the autopilot button? He frantically started mashing his fingers across the keyboard, the throttle, the overhead panel. He was playing the cockpit like a frantic jazz piano. Oh, I fixed it, he cheered. Kevin, I sighed, you just turned on the fasten seatbelt sign. You are still plummeting at 400 miles an hour. Well, they need to be buckled in. It's about to be a bumpy ride, he defended, his face now completely flushed red. The digital altimeter was spinning backwards like a slot machine. 10,000 feet. 8,000 feet. 6,000 feet. Okay, I just need to find the runway. Where is Chicago? This windshield is terrible. I can't see anything through this rain. Are there windshield wipers? You didn't ask about windshield wipers when you were eating Cheetos and criticizing Sully, babe, I reminded him cheerfully. This isn't fair. I don't know what any of these screens mean. Why are there so many numbers? He yelled. Look at this one. It's just a green ladder moving sideways. What is the green ladder? That's the artificial horizon, Kevin. It tells you if you were upside down, which currently you were close to being. Planes don't fly upside down. That's helicopters. That is literally the stupidest thing you have ever said, and you once asked me if hamsters lay eggs. We were at 3,000 feet. The ground, a terrifying patchwork of dark, pixelated suburban sprawl, was rushing up at the screen. The alarms were deafening. "Shut up! Shut up, robot!" Kevin screamed at the dashboard. He was hyperventilating. The man was legitimately sweating through his t-shirt. The veins in his neck were bulging. He was gripping the yoke so tight I thought the plastic was going to snap. "Deploy the wheels! Where are the wheels?" he yelled. He reached over and grabbed the biggest lever he could find and yanked it backwards. "Kevin, no!" I laughed. "What did I do? Did I drop the wheels?" "No, Captain. You just deployed full reverse thrust while we were still 2,000 feet in the air. You've essentially slammed the brakes on midair. We are now dropping like an anvil." "Undo! Undo!" he screamed, trying to shove the lever forward. It wouldn't budge. He was panic shoving everything. He hit the flap controls. He hit the radio button. Suddenly, a booming, pre-recorded air traffic control voice came over the headset. "American 815, you are dropping altitude rapidly. Do you declare an emergency?" "Yes, yes, I declare an emergency! Help me!" Kevin screamed into the little plastic microphone attached to his headset. "I am a dentist! I don't know what I'm doing! The green ladder is gone!" We hit 500 feet. The alarms were blending into one continuous shriek of digital agony. "Brace for impact!" Kevin yelled, closing his eyes and throwing his arms up over his face, completely abandoning the controls. "You're the pilot, Kevin! You can't brace!" I yelled over the noise. Kevin snapped his eyes open. Did the plane just insult me?" "It's telling you to retard the throttle, Kevin." "Well, it didn't have to be rude about it." The silence in the living room was deafening. The only sound was the gentle whirring of the computer's cooling fans, working overtime to render the fiery crater Kevin had just created in a digital Chicago suburb. Kevin sat frozen in the chair. His arms were still slightly raised. The cheap plastic captain's hat was askew on his head. He was breathing rapidly. I let the silence hang for a solid 30 seconds. I wanted him to marinate in the failure. I wanted the reality of his hubris to sink deep into his bones. Finally, I stood up, walked over, and gently plucked the captain's hat off his sweaty head. "Physics and vibes, huh?" I whispered. Kevin slowly turned his head to look at me. He swallowed hard. "The wind shear," he croaked, his voice cracking. "The wind shear was unprecedented. No pilot could have handled that. Kevin, you deployed the reverse thrusters at 2,000 feet and then abandoned the yoke to cover your face like a scared child." "It was a tactical brace," he argued weakly, though the fight had clearly left his body. "And the buttons were mislabeled. I think this simulator is defective." "Uh-huh," I said, walking to the wall and pulling the power cord. The massive screen powered down with a sad little bloop sound. "Next time we fly commercial," I said, looking down at him in the darkness, "and there's a bit of turbulence, I don't want to hear a peep from you. You are going to sit in your middle seat, you are going to eat your little packet of Biscoff cookies, and you are going to respect the people in the front of the plane who know what the green ladder does." Kevin slowly nodded in the dark. "Yes, ma'am," he mumbled. And that, my friends, is how you deal with male overconfidence. You don't argue with it. You don't debate it. You spend $3,000 on specialized gaming equipment to let them physically experience their own spectacular failure. Was it a financially responsible decision? Absolutely not. My credit card is currently crying. But watching a grown man scream at a digital altimeter because he thought playing Super Smash Brothers qualifies him to pilot a commercial airliner? Worth every penny. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go list a gently used, slightly sweated on Thrustmaster Boeing yoke on eBay. I'm hoping to get at least half my money back before Kevin tries to tell me he could probably land a space shuttle. Thank you guys so much for watching The Audacity of Him. If you have a partner who thinks they could beat a bear in a fistfight, land a plane, or successfully perform an emergency appendectomy having only watched Grey's Anatomy, please share your trauma in the comments below. I need to know that I'm not alone. Don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps out the channel and pays for my emotional damage. Subscribe if you want to see more stories of me destroying egos with extreme prejudice, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Until next time, stay grounded, trust the professionals, and never let a man with a Mario Kart steering wheel tell you he can fly a Boeing. Bye, guys!